Welcome back to Lenz's Comic Corner Classics / Non-Classics. This is episode number 1629 and Doubleshot number 1523. I got two Marvel trades. One is a complete collection. The other one is a finale for a writer's run. Alright, the first one is The Ultimates 2. The Ultimate Collection. Yeah, this book came out from February 2007 to February 2005 to February 2007. Exactly 2 years it took to release this thing. And like with the first Ultimate books, it's 13 issues. And 2 story arcs, Gods and Monsters and Grand Theft America. Here's a little fun fact for you about Volume 2. Volume 1 was definitely at my local library for a long time. Volume 2 was never there. It was definitely the case. It was not the case for Volume 1. Volume 2, yes, where Gods and Monsters, the very first story arc, that was there. Grand Theft America, no. The first story arc involves basically the Ultimates still being recognized as heroes, and somebody, and this is something the book does not explain who the heck did this. It's hinted it's one other character who was responsible for this, despite the fact it was... He doesn't say he did it, but you could say he did do it. By the way, this book is still written by Mark Millar and art by Brian Hitch. I like the first volume with hilarious quotes. This one, not necessarily, no. It's like Mark Millar took inspiration from the real-life Iraqi war with this one. Okay, the very first story arc involves the Hulk. Yes, the Hulk once again. This time it's different. You see, Bruce Banner has been outed as the Hulk. Who did this? The book never explains it. We also have Black Widow and Iron Man, who apparently are a couple now. And they have got engaged. And this lasts until toward the end of the book, which I'll get to that. In the case of Captain America himself, well, he has pretty much started a relationship with Jenna Von Dyne. Yep. And he gets some crap happening to him in the second half of this thing. Thor has apparently quit the Ultimates after the first book. He's doing his own thing. You first see him talking to apparently Bostag, who was wearing a Hawaiian shirt for some reason. And then apparently after a few minutes of talking to him, a guy walks up to him and says, "Dude, what are you doing? You've been talking to yourself for 5 minutes." And Thor's like, "What are you talking about? I've been talking to Volstagg all this time." Yeah, this does kind of have some explanation. It's kind of weird. And we also get introduction to a few new characters in here. We have the introduction to Captain Britain of the Ultimate Universe. Yep. Also, the Hulk is put on trial. There's an issue in here called Trial of the Incredible Hulk, which, yes, this issue is a nod to the actual TV movie Trial of the Incredible Hulk. Oh yeah, and here's something interesting though. Like that movie, Matt Murdock is his attorney. Yep. Yep. And because basically they can't have a court, basically they have them virtual. Which perfectly understandable. And no, there's nothing to do with what's going on right now. So basically, apparently, like, they have this trial, and then you have Nick Fury showing up. Yeah, he does play a role in this book. Oh boy, it's just kind of odd, to say the least. Yeah, his thing what he does with the Ultimates in this book is kind of dumb, to say the least. Especially since it involves the European Super Soldier Initiative. I think it's the pronounced the group. Because this book, it was the introduction to, well, Captain Britain. And here's the weird thing about the Captain Britain of this particular universe. He's never actually appeared. Like, outside of this universe. He never has. For some reason, he hasn't. There's been no explanation of exactly why, per se. Okay. It's basically the European Defense Initiative, with him and Captain Italy, Captain France, Captain Spain. Yeah. And Iron Man is the first person to meet Captain Britain, where they help put together, they find this like ship, whatever. And they have Thor in Italy stopping cops basically hurting protesters. He points out, though, this is a peaceful protest. Why are you throwing tear gas for? Yes, this is a nod to some stuff that's happened in real life. Here in the U.S., this has not happened since the 70s, where tear gas has been used by police officers to stop a protest. Though that protest back then was due to the draft. This is protesting, like, anti-American stuff. By the way, what's the dumb thing the Ultimate's doing here? Well, what happens something with the Ultimates in this book, in the first story, does affect the very next story arc of this book, by the way. Yes, and it's quite odd, to say the least. Basically, the Ultimates, basically in a way, invade a foreign country in the Middle East and remove all their nukes. Yes, seriously, they do this. It is by far, yes, and also Thor, apparently they think he's he was basically like crazy, so let's just basically have it where he's declared nuts by a guy who they've never met before. And this guy claims that Thor is some kind of like nurse who claims he's a thunder god. So the Ultimates beat the crap out of him. And they take his belt and he gets sort of depowered. And pretty much put in the same cell as Bruce Banner. Oh, by the way, with Bruce Banner, they kind of in a way, well, this is what they claim. Oh yeah, they threw out the case? Nope. He was pretty much, by the way, they actually have it where, get this. Charles Xavier is drawn like Patrick Stewart. Yep. So yeah, with pretty much in a way, like, with the Hulk pretty much sort of in a way, actually, by the way, he doesn't die. He comes back at the end of the book. Yeah, in the most strangest way possible. They don't really give a clear explanation of how the heck he survived a freaking, like, atomic bomb that practically was supposed to kill him. Yep. Yeah, he just somehow comes back, and it's not thoroughly explained. Yeah, Thor is basically have the Ultimates basically beat the crap out of him, and he's put in the same cell. And Hank Pym basically like, oh, by the way, in issue 5, this is by far a standalone issue, and it's one of the most weirdest issues of this whole book. Okay, we actually have it where Hank Pym is invited to join this group called the Defenders. And here's the strange thing, though. This group has nothing to do with the classic Defenders I'm a big fan of. This is the ultimate version of the Defenders. And they're comprised of the ultimate versions of, get this, you're going to love this. Okay, there's even a picture of them. Here they are, the Ultimate Defenders. We have Hank Pym. No, he does not become Giant Man. That's actually a big fat lie. He actually joins the group as Ant-Man. Which, by the way, Scott Lang did join the Defenders briefly as Ant-Man. We also have Nighthawk, who apparently is leader of the group. We also have in here Luke Cage. This apparently is Patsy Walker. Yes, this girl is Patsy Walker. Valkyrie. And this guy here, he claims he's a son of Satan. Yeah. And their thing is that, oh, Hank Pym is invited to join the group. And Valkyrie is rumored to be like 19 at this point, 19, 20. I mean, parents-wise, she might be a minor, but she really isn't. Also, apparently, Dan Waltman, a.k.a. Black Knight. Yeah, this guy here, he's apparently supposed to be Black Knight. And, yeah, their one and only outing, this group of Defenders, yeah, it's pretty much a botch. Yeah, they get botched, and they're never brought up again until they popped up. Like, after this one issue of Ultimates 2, the Defenders, the Ultimate Defenders, do not appear again until the very first issue of Ultimate Comics New Ultimates, where they get powers. Yes, seriously. Defenders get powers, and they become evil. No, that book was about Jeff Loeb, not Mark Millar. So, this whole thing of, like, well, disarming a whole nation. And there's also this thing where Cap is basically doubting Janet's, like, their relationship, where, like, he thinks that she's gone back to sleep with Hank. She hasn't. Also, one of the most violent scenes happened just prior to this, where Hawkeye is attacked in his home. By the way, the old version of Hawkeye, he's got a wife and kids. Well, not anymore. Nope. These guys in ski masks break into his house while he's there, and they proceed to murder his wife, his 2 kids, and it's apparently suggests that he himself was killed, though he himself survived. Yes, Hawkeye has survived, despite the fact that his family was murdered. Mark my word for you. Yes, though this version of Hawkeye was used for the movies, and him losing his family, that did happen in the MCU, but his family came back anyway, so they're perfectly fine. Yep. So, oh, and by the way, Nick Fury finds evidence that supposedly Captain America was involved with the death of Hawkeye, even though that all they did was look at some footage. Like, does Cap have any motive to kill him? No. So basically, Nick Fury just basically beats the crap out of Cap, supposedly tries to arrest him, though he's able to get away while causing a big scene. And, like, we find, oh yeah, Hawkeye is alive somehow. And then we have, by the way, this old man here, that apparently is the ultimate version of Jarvis. Yes, that apparently is Jarvis. Where everybody's wondering what the heck is going on, and they suspect something is wrong. All of a sudden we have these big explosions happening, and we have Black Widow and Iron Man having sex. No, seriously. Tresco is attacked. Then we have these robots show up. You might think, oh crap, isn't there alien invasion? No! It's an invasion from another country! Yes. Where S.H.I.E.L.D. is attacked by a group of people known as Liberators, who are led by this guy. Oh boy. You want to know who this guy is? It's Loki! Yes, this guy is apparently Loki. Oh yeah, by the way, the Liberators do the most despicable thing they can do. What do these guys do? They topple the Statue of Liberty. Yes. And here they are, the Liberators. This is the ultimate version of the Abomination. Yes, it is about the Hulk in the storyline. I will get that. We have Loki, Swarm, who actually, she and this guy here, Pura, they do survive the storyline. This guy here, Colonel, I don't remember his last name. He apparently is supposed to be, at this point, the ultimate version of the Red Skull. And this guy's a Russian. Yes. And then we have Hurricane, who apparently is North Korean. And this guy here, that is apparently the ultimate version of Crimson Dynamo. Yes, seriously. And, like, the Liberators. Like, the best way to describe these guys is that they are pretty much, in a way, like the ultimate version of the Masters of Evil. Let's see if I can find him here. Okay, the Liberators members are the Colonel, Abomination, Crimson Dynamo, Hurricane, Purin, the Sinizoid Man, who is actually Multiple Man. No, seriously. He apparently has an alias of Jamie Mandrix. Yeah, this guy here is supposed to be Jamie Mandrix. That's apparently one of his aliases. He apparently is a clone of his. Yes, seriously. We also have Swarm and Black Widow is part of this group. And also in this very issue where they debut the group, we have death of Edwin Jarvis. Well, the ultimate version of him. Yeah, the 66 version, I should point out though something about him. He's very much still alive. But here's the thing about him. He is barely used in comics anymore. Yes. Yeah, his appearances have been so scarce over the years. Like, you might ask, Nick, what was his most recent appearance to date? You might ask. An issue of Amazing Spider-Man. Yes, seriously. He popped up for issue 70 toward the end of Nick Spencer's run. I think that may have been a flashback. No, yeah, he actually physically appeared in the book. It was the start of Sinister War. And prior to that, he appeared in the last appearance prior to that was actually in the final issue of Tony Stark Iron Man. Yeah. He appeared here. Yep. Now I love the character Edwin Jarvis. An absolute fantastic character. And for some reason, Marvel barely uses him. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Though it could also be, the thing with the Colonel, he could be like, well, a version of like the Red Guardian. But I think of him, like at one point he was considered to be the older version of Red Skull until the actual one. Mm-hmm. So these are your villains, everybody. Now, Purin himself does technically have a 616 counterpart, believe it or not. Oh yeah, he does. And you're thinking, how the heck is that possible with this guy? Well, he does, and I thought that was quite strange. Yeah, he does. He's actually like an imposter. He's actually a character first popped up in Captain America. And he was recently part of the Winter Guard. Yeah, a group that was basically based out of Russia. He's one of the gods of Russia. I mean, appearance-wise, he's just a Thor. He's basically a Thor ripoff. Is basically what the guy is. Mm-hmm. And he was removed from the Winter Guard team. With, I think it was like the final issue. Mm-hmm. Now, Purin himself would actually survive the storyline. Mm-hmm. Hurricane, no. She actually, I believe this is a woman. Yeah. She got killed by Quicksilver. Yep. Now, as for the other characters, well, Crimson Dynamo, you might ask, did he get a chance to fight Iron Man in this storyline? By the way, this is not like Banco or whatever. His real name is Alexis Sue. And you might ask, did he fight Iron Man? Yes, he did. Because he's an Iron Man villain. Hurricane, I don't think is actually a character like a speedster from... Well, actually, okay, he does have a couple versions of him. There's a villain who appeared part of that, and... not much is known of this guy. I mean, you could say he's just a made-up character for the Ultiverse. I mean, he kind of is. Mostly. Yeah. As for Swarm, yeah, Swarm herself. You could say that Swarm is the best way to describe it. Swarm is the ultimate version of the bee monster. Yes. Yes, you can I can definitely buy that. Mm-hmm. So these guys conquer America. Yes, they basically. Oh yeah, and they work with Hank Pym. Now, also Black Widow turns traitor. By the way, she's also the one who kills Edwin Jarvis, and also she ends her engagement to Tony Stark in the storyline. And you have where Swarm himself basically is trying to strangle Janet. And you have Caption up and says, "Get the hell with my girlfriend." in this great pose, in this great this great page by Brian Hitch. So they basically start striking back, of course, and they start fighting back and take back the White House. By the way, the president himself doesn't really do anything, and then this is quite bizarre. Like, somehow, some way, the Hulk is here. Like, how the heck did he know to come to help the Ultimates? Don't know. So, yeah. They have the Colonel fighting Captain America. Of course he does. And you also have one of the most jaw-dropping things ever happen in the Ultimate Universe. Jenna Von Dyne goes giant size, and her clothes do not rip. Which, that's interesting. And Wanda's like, wow, that's incredible. Yep. And Crimson Dynamo gets vaporized by Tony Stark. Yep. Oh yeah, by the way, we have this funny thing basically with Abomination when he fights frickin' Hulk, which is so funny. But I love basically Captain Britain's review. Where they're in New York. What's going on? Is it a curfew? Actually, we're trying to find Fantastic Four. Because they went after Fantastic Four. They captured the thing, but can't find any members. It's like, you're trying to find with who were here, would you? What? Get out of here. This area is off limits to civilians. Oh, we're not civilians. We're a super soldier task force from the European Union. I'm assuming you don't read superhero comics in Mother Russia. So he pretty much pulls a Superman where he basically takes off his glasses and then he just whoosh. Under his shirt is his Captain Britain suit. And he beats the crap out of them. And then you have the Hulk. Yeah, unlike Captain America's got funny quotes. Here's Hulk's quotes from Ultimates 2. He's like, what's the square root of 6,270,000? It's like, ugh. What's the capital of Texas? How many legs the spiders got? Can you tell the Hulk formula? Go, please, for heaven's sake. Oh, not so clever. Which is so funny. Yeah, and then of course, well done, Stark. How like we make men explode? No. Yep. And Abomination gets killed by the Hulk. The whole thing of him quoting science to him and geography is funny. Yes, because the Hulk is sometimes sent to claim he's the smartest there is, and being the strongest there is. Yeah, but that's the Hulk for you. And then you have Hank Pym like, okay, like, what do you say, Dr. Pym? Yes, Ultron robots. Yes, there's also some stuff basically in this book that does mildly set up Ultimates 3. I will get that. So, you have Captain America fighting a bunch of, like, Swarm, and basically he finally kills the Colonel. This is, of course, at the Hawkeye show, it says, hey, Darth Maul wants his lightsaber back. Which, like, apparently Brian Hitch got up basically doing a Star Wars reference in this book, which I found to be so funny. And then you have this awesome pose of the X-Men Spider-Man basically trying to fight the Liberators. And then more strange stuff happens. Like, okay, you think the Liberators? Oh no! And then you have, by the way, this is in Washington DC. Loki shows up and basically starts burning the American flag with lightning. Yeah, and then of course more lightning shows up, and then here's Thor back to full power, despite the fact he has Belt taken away from him. And like, they think he's crazy, but he really isn't. And then all of a sudden, like, giant wolves show up, and then we have frickin' orcs. Yes, orcs. And then the mid-card serpent shows up. Like, what the heck? Yep, everyone's like so happy to see him. And then you have this rainbow whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. And then a humongous army of Vikings show up. Yes, frickin' Vikings. Yeah, everyone's like, sorry for doubting you. And then we have this 8-page spread. And look at this. Of this massive fight scene of the Ultimates fighting a bunch of, like, trolls and orcs. Yeah, in this awesome scene. Yeah, look at this thing. It is so freaking big. Like, oh my gosh. Look at this. This is so awesome. Yeah, you gotta thank Brian Hitch for this. Yeah, this is one of 2 times I have ever seen this for comics. We have an 8-page spread like this. Damn. Who would have thunk Brian Hitch would take time to do something like as awesome as this? Yep. Yeah, and it basically confirmed these issues that, oh yeah, Thor's definitely a guy, he wasn't lying. And then, yeah, basically him fighting Loki. Like, even it's like, oh, like, he's like, you filth, you are excrement, I refuse to fall before the shame of Asgard. And Loki, I was jealous, Thor, jealous, I was sent here to save you. I only wanted you to fail so much smile at me once. Did you see my clues? You're clever where I was? Norway's even European Union. Well, what about security tapes? All I did wiggle my nose and they saw Captain America killing Hawkeye's family. Can't you see how funny the side was? Game's over, Loki. Father wants a word. And smack right in the frickin' head with frickin' with the old version of Mjolnir. And yeah, and like the battle's won. Trying to pick up the pieces. Yep. And like, yep. Basically, have Wanda giving Thor a kiss for basically doing something awesome. And we just deal with the aftermath of this. And then we have Cap pretty much having where the Ultimates no longer work for the U.S. government. Yeah, because of this whole thing. And then Hawkeye goes to the hospital where Black Widow's at. Like, oh, nice and comfy. Maybe she get a tryout for basically being a traitor. And you have her being pinned to the frickin' wall by Hawkeye. And then her putting an arrow in her head for killing his family. And Tony Stark takes some pills. And then apparently, like, oh, he's like so sad because Natasha died. And he's like, ooh, what's that? A blonde. Yes, a blonde basically calms him down. A freaking blonde. Yep. And also, I should point out, though, Tony Stark's like, you want to come to my house? Yep. That pretty much sets up Ultimates 3. Basically, we have a few minor things set up here from this book that set up Ultimates 3. Like, we have Wanda flirting with a robot, which that sets up a plot thread in Ultimates 3. Along with, basically, Iron Man's relationship with Black Widow, and, of course, the Ultimates living at Tony Stark's mansion. Yep. That's pretty much what, kind of in a way, the ending of this book does kind of set up anyways. But for Ultimates 2, it's a pretty decent follow-up to what Ultimates 1 was. But man, it was like a dramatic shit. Like, so apparently Loki was behind like a lot of the stuff that happened over the course of the book. Maybe like a lot of stuff in the second half of this book. But the first half, well, I think the only thing that they did not really confirm if he was behind this at all was leaking Hulk being Bruce Banner. Yeah, it's hinted he may have done it, but there was no proof he did it. Yeah. But this book is good. I'm going to give this book a 9 out of 10. Who knew I spent like a half hour talking about Ultimates 2. Alright, moving on. Different book. We have Fantastic Four. Volume 3. Doomed. Yes. These are the issues basically where get this. Matt Fraction didn't even finish this book. Oh, no, he didn't. This book he left with issue 11. Yes. And for some reason we have, get this, we have Christopher Sibilla brought out as a co-writer to finish up his issues, despite the fact he left. The rumor I heard, I'll get to more of that in a minute. So basically we have a lot of like traveling around, goes some more time traveling stuff, and then eventually, of course, they finally arrive home pretty much from the start of the very volume, where they claim they've been gone for 5 minutes, even though they were gone for a long period of time. Yeah, I like the fact that the writers of this book, that Christopher Sabat and Carl Kitzler wrap up the storyline. A lot of this stuff deals with Doctor Doom in here. Yes. So Matt Fraction only does issue 12. But mostly he pretty much stopped issue 10. That was the last regular issue he wrote for the book. Yes. Because where he left. I'll get to more of that. So Mark Bagley does do the issue 13, but the last 3 issues are done by Rafa Aquino. Now, Christopher Cibula does finish up his issues along with Carl Kitzler. Yes. I like the fact that we go through the time travel stuff in here, which is still pretty fun. I like time travel stuff, and this is a pretty decent conclusion, this one. Though the ending of this does kind of help set up basically James Jarvis' run for the book. I give this book roughly a 9.5 out of 10. My final thoughts on Matt Fraction's run for Fantastic Four. It's it's actually a pretty interesting book. I originally was not all that big of a fan of this, and I reread it, I'm like, wow, this actually is a pretty fun book. And one of the big issues with this book is that they spend way too much time in space, but I kind of forgot that they also did time traveling as well. Yeah, and basically issue 16, like at the time, this was like, oh, final issue before its relaunch, number 1, when James Jarvis took over. Oh, by the way, the whole thing about Fantastic Four dying, yeah, that's kind of basically resolved before this book is even over. Yeah, they resolved that plot thread, and basically the one thing this book does kind of set up in Volume 2 is that Valerie does not live with the Richards anymore. No, that's basically where, once they get home, she goes off to live with Doc Doom for quite a while until the end of James Jarvis' run. Yep. Now, I did hear that Matt Fraction did lead this book before this book is even finished, and you have Christopher Cibula basically ghostwriting it for him. Even Carl Kitzler was ghostwriting for Matt Fraction. What could have been the reason why? Like, he left? My guess is, and this is just my personal theory, he probably had a big disagreement with Axel Alonso. I still have that theory that he had public disagreement. He basically had a falling out with Axel Alonso. He probably didn't like Axel Alonso's ideas from our comics. And that's probably the reason why he left. Because as soon as he finished doing this book, and when he left FF, he left Marvel. And he never came back to any major comic. He never did anything for any of the big two ever again. Until he did Superman's pal, Jimmy Olsen. That was the next book he actually did for, like, any company. Like, because as soon as he left Marvel, like, what did he do? Sex criminals. No, seriously. That is what he did. Sex criminals. With Chip Zdarsky. Yeah. Yeah, he also worked on an issue of Old Guard. He worked on a book with his wife, Kelly Suhanik. Oh, this is interesting, though. Matt Fraction and Kelly Suhanik are parents. By the way, Matt Fraction is 46. His wife, Kelly Suhanik, is 51. Yeah, she's like 5 years older than he is. And that's like not a bit unusual. Yeah. Well, there was also about Casanova. He was working on White House at Marvel. But he worked on Sex Criminals. That's pretty much what he did for the next 8 years. He worked on that book. He worked on Satellite Sam, ODYC, Solid State, story of one of his wife's books, November. Venture Man was actually one of his more recent books he worked on, which I'm reading. It's actually a really good book. Yeah, that was actually the most newest book he's worked on recently, which, it's a great book. Yep. But for DC, he didn't do that much for DC per se. And you're thinking, really? He hasn't done much for DC? Yeah, he's done very little for DC. He did a couple one-shots. He worked on Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen. And a story for the comics 1027. Oh yeah, here's something interesting though about Matt Fraction. He's a producer for the Hawkeye Disney Plus show. And you're thinking, really? Yeah, he's a consultant producer. Probably because the show probably takes a lot of inspiration from his run. Yeah. But not much else to say about these two books. Ultimates 2, really good. Fantastic Four Volume 3 Doom, pretty good too. And I think Matt Fraction was basically pretty good for what it was. I will eventually get a chance to review FF, like his one for FF in the future. So as of right now, Fantastic Four, let me take a look at this here. Because I think by now, anyways, trying to think here for the writer, because the writer basically next came, of course, Jonathan, James Jarvis for Fantastic Four. Mm-hmm. So could you probably say I got from like '09 to present done? No. I think I've got done as of right now from 2010 to present because of wrapping up this run. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I haven't finished up 2009 yet because I gotta get done Matt Fraction's run for the book because basically I've only got as far back as 570 for Fantastic Four. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, I've reviewed like a good chunk of Mark Millar's work for Marvel. Mm-hmm. Yes, and the first issue of Fantastic Four he wrote, I think it was 554. It wasn't I don't think it was that long of a run. No, it wasn't. It was actually surprisingly really short. Yeah, his run started with 554, and then it wrapped up with 569. It was basically like a 16 issue run. Yeah, 16 issues. But that's something I'll probably review in the future. Yep. But yeah, that's just a quick review. You're probably thinking, okay, what about, well, doing Shaman King? Probably I'd do it tomorrow at this rate. Yep. Next video. Bye.